We have complex ways of doing things, but if you ask the simple question, there are other solutions. Where is blockchain going to bring us? And we are at the beginning of blockchain. Tonight I wanted to bring the thought one step further, one crazy idea more. If I have additional energy in the cars and there are no people, I could use the cars to deliver energy from A to B. Then I would not only have changed the complete ecosystem of mobility for people, but I also would have an alternative energy system. What can we do with that? As it is very good to now think about kings and presidents and if we really do want to have them. But be aware, what I'm talking about now is the far future. Okay, good evening. Nice that you are all here for this meetup about blockchain and how it can be beneficiary for society. What we are going to do today is basically first deep dive into two questions. A, how does blockchain add value? And secondly, how do we add value to society? If you could change society, what do you want to change? Why do I like blockchain? What was my first encounter with blockchain? If you look in your wallet, we all have colored paper there. And what makes that a paper specific? We have bank, we have governments, and they say if you use this colored paper, then you can exchange for value. If you use other, you cannot. And what got my interest in blockchain was that there were some people who weren't part of a government, just looked at it and said, okay, but what is the basic idea? Because we have the whole complex system of banks, of governments, but what do we really want to do? What is the simple question? Simple question, what do you need to pay, is no double spending and a secure ledger. And they said, okay, that's nice, let's build that. Let's build that on the base of cryptocurrency. And they did, and we all know it because it's the most famous example of blockchain, it's a Bitcoin. So that showed me that we have complex ways of doing things, but if you ask the simple question, there are other solutions. Why am I talking about blockchain? I work for an energy company, an energy grid company. And what we do is to ensure the delivery of energy to the people. We are not money driven. It is our task to ensure that people always will have energy. So we are more or less government based. Of course, if you look to the energy system, something that is comparable is happening. Because as you woke up this morning, the sun was shining outside and the sun delivers 6,000 times the amount of energy you need. 6,000 times we need as a whole society. So the energy comes to here, but, and this is the system of the Netherlands, we built a very complex system to deliver basically the energy from here to there. So you can imagine that my question is, okay, if we want to use energy, how can we deliver it from here to there without the whole complexity of that system? Because from a technical perspective, I need hardware, that's for sure. And I need another thing. If you look to energy, then you have people who trust their meter reading. You have people who trust their bill. You have the government who trusts that the energy tax that they are asking from us is getting paid. And I haven't found the answer yet, but I know that I have to look in the lines of hardware and trust. Where is blockchain going to bring us? Then you start to talk to people whose job it is to help us to see the far future. And we talked to Gartner. And what Gartner told us, and what was very enticing, is that they are talking about a programmable economy. And programmable economy, for me, has the notion of the self-driving cars everybody's talking about. So you have technology and that can do the work alone. We only have to use it. And that it's not only a self-driving car, but the whole economy gets self-driving. And that blockchain could be the basis for that. But be aware, what I'm talking about now is the far future. And we are at the beginning of blockchain. Blockchain basically is in its infancy state. So what Gartner also tells us, we have to do two things. Basically one, vision development. We have to learn, and that's what we are going to do today, is how can we think strategically about blockchain? What are the strange ways it can alter our way of thinking? And B, start action-based learning, because it's an infant and we have to discover where the hurdles for growth are. They expect blockchain technology to reinvent itself every 24 months. And maybe the things we are talking about today is possible in 4 years or in 6 years. Let's do a deep dive in what could be possible. To help you with that, I want to first talk about 4 different kinds of blockchains we have. The first thing, and that's the blockchain most common to the world today, is the hyperledger. It's something IBM developed, and what they say is, okay, also from IBM perspective, we work with industry clients, and in industry clients there are no issues of trust. So what do we have then? And then they say, okay, well, we have a ledger, an information sharing system. And the good thing is, everybody has the same information at the same time. So we have now a lot of businesses who make their business because they know things more than other people, or their data quality is better, or they are faster. Within the blockchain, you basically become one system where information is open to everybody, or if you go to IBM and you pay, then you can say, okay, I want this information protected. It's open but protected, and they build an additional layer and then you can protect it again. But what that means is that if you take Hyperledger, the important thing is that you can make a system more efficient. Also, one element of Hyperledger that I hear about too little, because in a Hyperledger system, you're actually building the complete value chain in one system. And that makes that it becomes one body. Everybody is part of the same organization. If I think about my own body, I have different organs. I have a heart and I have a liver. And what you do in value chains is you see somewhat of competition. But if in my body my heart would compete with my liver and my liver would win, I would be very unhappy. So I see the Hyperledger blockchain as a kind of opportunity to rethink what is healthy in a value chain. How can we help each other and not compete so much with each other over the change? The second blockchain is blockchain of the trust, where basically Bitcoin is the example. The most value for me lies in finding the simple question, forget about the complex solution we have today, the simple question, and to build it. A very nice feature of blockchain is when you use it to, for example, use it for privacy issues. Because you could identify yourself to a blockchain In Holland, we have a system that's government-based. It's a very heavy system. If I go through that system, they know, okay, it's actually Jan Peter who is logging in. And that's a very heavy system. What you can do in a blockchain is that you identify one time in such a heavy blockchain, and then you add, for example, a Hotmail account to it. And then like Twitter, because you made the connection within the blockchain, then my Hotmail account would get the status of this is really a true person. We cannot see which person, but it's really a true person. And if I act with my validated email address and it gets lost, only my Hotmail address would get lost and not my high profile identification which I use by the government. Smart contracts. Smart contracts is basically that you can program conditions in payments. And the nice thing what that does is that it offers us opportunities to rethink about settlements. For example, imagine you are buying a house. Then if I buy a house, I have an expectation that the roof will not collapse. And I have an expectation that all the piping will be good. And so I have a number of expectations. And in the world of today, I go to a real estate broker or to a technical guy who says, okay, you can buy this house, it's okay. But if you can build conditional payments, then you can make it, okay, I buy the house, but as soon as the ground collapses, the money gets back. So basically the insurance part, the house brokering part, can be part of those transactions. If you take the transaction thought one step further, if all transactions can be automated, you could actually create a firm, an entity, who works on itself. The first example I heard was a blockchain where you had to send Bitcoin, and as soon as the Bitcoin would pay, a drone would fly to A, pick a package up and deliver it to B. And there is no people in that firm. So the drone knows when he needs energy, he knows when he has some issues and he can get people in to solve it. But basically it's a distributed autonomous organization. It works on itself. What can we do with that? Now, back to what I do on a daily basis. Think about the energy system. What would happen if we built a grid of houses and energy sources and we would define that as an ecosystem? Could we develop a DAO which runs this system? And there we are looking basically in how do we get the information in. And there we have one challenge, because a blockchain will always register what is told and you do not know if it's true. So if your meter is off, it would actually be lying to the system. So what we are doing there is that we work with several information streams and we look if the information is coherent. That's step one. And two, we are looking on what way we can bring the intelligence to the system if we are going to use artificial intelligence or deep learning. Because if the DAO runs the system, the DAO has to understand the system. And to tell you about our first pilot, we built a microgrid, so houses with energy. They were transferring energy, and what we did is we placed one entity within the blockchain who was there to rob the energy. So basically an intruder. And what was happened, because the intruder made the system show abnormal energy uses, so all the houses said, hey, there's an intruder and he is there. So what we are basically doing is bringing intelligence into the system. If you look at somebody who is very far with blockchain, then it is company RWE, or as they now are known, Energy. They are thinking about electric vehicles and how you can charge them. If you look now, there is an infrastructure with 10,000 different kinds of contracts, especially if you look globally, with different kinds of participants. So it's a very complex system. And what they said is, okay, how nice would it be if we have one global, easy to use, contractless charging system? And they built it. And actually, what you here see is the information which is on the website. They are now testing it in Berlin with 40 loading docks and 600 cars. And what they are doing then is that as one party, they are changing the complete system of EV charge. So if you look at the energy industry, different parties are talking, how are we going to do it together? And they built just one blockchain, one plug, and one app, and they are going to do it alone. You have the development guy there, Carsten Sturker, in an interview, and he is telling about what is strategic vision. And he said, okay, when you charge your car, 3 industries converge: the utility, the automotive, and the finance industry. But it's one transaction, so I need one industry, one solution. And there will be no business for the other 2 industries. And Carsten then says, okay, and if I look at the finance guys, they have no assets, they have no experience in the physical world, so there will be no competition from them. And to the automotive industry, we say, the game is on. Who is going to dominate this market? From an entrepreneurial thought, that's cool to dominate the market. But if I hear such things, and we are more or less in the business of ensuring that people have energy, I find the thought hard that there would be one company at the switch, and if they switch it off, there would be no business. If they switch it off, they could tell, okay, you now have to pay double because it's our system and we are dominating the market. So that's why that gives me not the best feeling in the world. I heard that the startups in Portugal are very much thinking about platform solutions when they are building their startup and the startup ideas. So especially I included this one. We all know the platform thinking. In the old world you had taxis, but now we have the sharing economy. We have one party which is called Uber, and they say if you have a car, then you can use it. We have the infrastructure, we will do the payment, we will do the insurance. You just have your car and you can drive for us, and basically all your drive is a kind of salary you get. And then in a lot of talks about startups and new world, we say, okay, this is a very good thing. But if you think about what's Uber's end game, and I have this information from the people of Arcade City, then they say, okay, what our strategic thought is that we want to have a connection to all the transportation logistics. So not only all the taxi fares that are going, but and those are actually from the last 2 weeks. There were in the news 2 times. One time they started Uber Eats in Amsterdam, where they said, okay, we're going to deliver your pizza, etc. for free. And they were even in the news for that they were deep diving into flying drone taxis to beat city traffic, but basically, again, to make the step to autonomous vehicles. And if you have all the logistics and you have self-driving cars, then you are the king of transportation. And as it is very good to now think about kings and presidents, and if we really do want to have them. In January 2016, overnight, Uber decided to slash take-home pay of the drivers with 40%. And as you can see in this car from this guy, I can't survive, I need tips. And why I'm telling this all in the blockchain speech? Because there is a blockchain alternative now. It actually started with those drivers that were not happy how Uber treated them. And there were also some legal issues, so, and I believe it was on the 31st of December. So there was a lot going on, and basically there was no way to help the people. And what they did is, in the first intention, they built a Facebook page, just a Facebook page where they connected the people who wanted to drive with the people who had fares. They made 100 tours that night, but the idea came so big that it went viral. And they start about, okay, how can we build that into a platform? What if we only want to connect the people without the idea of that we own the driver? We let the driver talk to the people and decide what their own fares are. And the people liked it very much. There also came some special interest spots of female who wanted to drive by female, or I want to get home late at night, how can I be safe? So special interest groups. So that is a great idea, and that's a blockchain solution that is working. They are actually at the moment do their seed selling, so it's very good. But I tonight wanted to bring the thought one step further, one crazy idea more. Because we now have the people of Arcade City who say, okay, I have a system where I have transactions and I have cars driving, and I'm going to arrange that. And if you build that system once, so it's there, and then it is run. But if you look to artificial intelligence itself has no use for money. And if I look to the Uber endgame, then you have autonomous driving cars, and they also have no use for money. So what would happen if nobody owns the assets? That's a nice thing about blockchain. It's a distributed system. If you look at Ethereum, it's like a layer over the internet, it's everywhere. You build a solution once, and everybody can use that solution. So, what if I take the self-driving car, I have the system who does the rides, and the system, like the energy system we're working on, can manage itself. So the car knows when it has a need for maintenance. A self-driving car itself can drive to an energy point and charge itself up. And in the near future we will have those charging points for the traffic light, and you will have inductive charging. So if we start the company, then you have people who are paying for fares. They are giving the money, but they are giving the money to entities who do not care about the money. The entities only use the company to grow. So basically they use the money to have their maintenance, to have their energy, and to buy more self-driving cars. So the company grows. And there will be a stage in where there are enough self-driving cars. But the money is still coming in, and there are only artificial beings who do not have use for the money. So why not, at that moment, give it back to the people as basic income? Because we have no use for the money. And imagine how crazy this idea is, because we are talking about the electric cars which are driving through the cities. They have energy. If I have additional energy in the cars and there are no people, I could use the cars to deliver energy from A to B. And then I would not only have changed the complete ecosystem of mobility for people, but I also would have an alternative energy system. This sounds cool. Can we start today? Well, with the Haagse Hogeschool, we're going to do a test, because we now can say, okay, if you have machinery, if you have assets, they do not care body, but humans also do have that kind of state. If they are intrinsically motivated, if they are doing things they like. So we could start with a system and say, how would you like a company which drives you from A to B, but the money you give, of course, there has to go some money to the taxi driver, there has to go some money to the car, but we are using your money to build this ecosystem. And we're just waiting for the moment that we have autonomous driving cars. And the nice thing is that we will grow and grow, and at the moment we are there, we're gonna use this solution, basically first to solve the problem. The easy question I've been talking about, people want to go from A to B. And with exactly the same system, people need energy from A to B. We are solving that also. And then B, we made your life cheaper, but we have money and we do not need it, we're going to give the money back. I myself would find that a much more preferable company to work with as the companies where I have to pay so that the CEO can drive a very big car. If you, after this talk, have dreams, questions from which you say, hey, this is cool, I want to talk about it, please put it in writing and put it on the wall.